She compared me to her toxic ex. So I canceled the wedding and left her a folder that ruined her life. My fiancée compared me to her ex and called me too soft, so I canceled the wedding, and what she found the next morning shattered her world. I'm a 29-year-old male, or was I guess, engaged to Ruby, a 27-year-old female. We were together for 4 years, engaged for the last 8 months, with the wedding supposed to be in 5 months. I'm a software developer making around $95,000, while she works as an HR manager at a mid-sized company. We got a house in the suburbs and split the mortgage, though I pay slightly more, 60/40ths. I was always the nice guy. I grew up with a single mom who worked 2 jobs, so I learned to take care of myself and others pretty early. My dad walked out when I was 7, which probably explained a lot about why I always tried so hard to be the perfect boyfriend and fiancé. Always afraid of being abandoned. Classic armchair psychology, but probably true. When I met Ruby at a friend's house party, she was fresh out of a relationship with this dude named Caleb who, from what she told me, treated her like absolute garbage. He cheated on her, made her pay for everything, and disappeared for days without explanation. The works. I swore I'd never be like that. I'd be the guy who remembered birthdays, checked in during the day, and actually gave a damn. I was that guy to a fault. Here's where the story actually starts. About 6 weeks ago, I got a migraine at work. A bad one. I couldn't look at my screen without feeling like my head was splitting open, so I told my boss I needed to leave early. I didn't text Ruby because I thought I'd surprise her by making dinner before she got home. She usually works until 6 o'clock, and it was only 3 o'clock when I pulled into our driveway. I noticed her car was already there, which was weird, but I thought maybe she wasn't feeling great either. As I was walking up to our bedroom to change into comfy clothes, I heard her on speakerphone with her friends. I was about to announce myself when I heard my name. Jake is just too freaking soft, she would say with this irritated tone I'd never heard her use about me. Always asking what I want, always trying to please me. Sometimes I wish he'd just make a decision without checking with me first. It's exhausting being the only one with actual balls in this relationship. I froze outside that door, feeling like someone had just sucker punched me in the stomach. At least Caleb knew what he wanted, she continued. He was an ass, but he wasn't afraid to take charge. Jake's sweet, but God, sometimes I miss being with someone who doesn't need my approval for every little thing. Her friend laughed. You're terrible. The wedding's in a few months. I know, Ruby said, sighing. Jake's stable and reliable. He'll make a good husband. I just wish he wasn't such a pushover sometimes. I backed away from the door, feeling like I couldn't breathe. I made it to the garage where I keep my tools and just sat there on my workbench, trying to process what I'd heard. For years together, and this is what she really thought of me, too soft. The same freaking quality she claimed was why she fell for me when we started dating. That night at dinner, I watched her with new eyes. She talked nonstop about her day, complained about her coworkers, and didn't ask me a single question about mine. I realized this was our normal pattern, me listening, her talking, me doing, her directing. After dinner, she did what she always does. Babe, clean up while I watch my show, okay? But instead of my usual sure thing, I heard myself say, actually, I got some code to finish. Why don't we both clean up tomorrow? The look on her face was pure shock, like I'd suddenly started speaking Chinese or something. She didn't argue, though, just gave me this weird look and went to watch her show. That night, lying next to her in bed, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her about what I heard. Not yet. First, I was going to find out if I really was the pushover she thought I was, or she'd just gotten too comfortable with me catering to her every whim. The next morning, instead of making her coffee and breakfast like I did every day, I only made enough for myself. When she came downstairs in her work clothes, she actually stopped and stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. Where's mine? She asked, not even trying to hide her confusion. Wasn't sure when you'd be down, I said, continuing to eat my eggs. Everything's there if you want to make some. She looked at me like I just suggested she should build a rocket ship. In 4 years, I don't think she made herself breakfast more than a handful of times. Are you serious right now? Completely. I finished my coffee, rinsed a mug, and grabbed my laptop bag. I'm heading out early today. Got a meeting with the project lead. Probably be late tonight, too. The guys want to grab beers after work. Don't wait up. As I walked out, I caught a reflection in the hall mirror. She looked stunned, mouth literally hanging open. For the first time in our relationship, I felt a rush of power, not over her, but over myself. The next week was eye-opening as hell. With my new perspective, I started noticing patterns that had been invisible to me before. How she'd text me during work hours with household tasks she could easily handle herself. Can you pick up my dry cleaning? We need milk. Can you stop on your way home? How she'd make plans for both of us, without checking if I had anything scheduled. How my opinions on everything from what to watch to where to vacation were always overruled for her preferences. How she'd roll her eyes at my ideas in front of her friends, then look at them like, see what I have to deal with? I started keeping a mental tally of how many times she asked about my day versus how often I asked about hers. In a typical week, I asked her 15 to 20 times. She asked me exactly twice, and both times she interrupted my answer to talk about herself. 10 days after overhearing that conversation, we got invited to a dinner party at her best friend Ashley's house. The same Ashley who'd been on that phone call. I agreed to go, curious to see how Ruby portrayed me in public now that I was paying attention. The evening started exactly as I expected. Ruby immediately jumped into conversation with her friends while I got stuck with their husbands and boyfriends. Throughout dinner, every time I shared an opinion about anything, politics, sports, even a TV show, she would interrupt me. What Jake means is, or Jake doesn't really know much about that, or that's not how it happened, babe. Before, I would have smiled and let it slide. Not tonight. Each time she interrupted, I just stopped talking mid-sentence and took a sip of my drink, letting an awkward silence hang in the air. By the third time, people at the table definitely noticed. Ashley's husband Tyler shot me a look that said, "Finally standing up for yourself, huh?" Ruby started getting flustered when her usual routine wasn't working. On the drive home, she finally broke the silence. "What was that about tonight? You were acting really weird." "Was I?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the road. "How so? You were being, I don't know, cold, distant. Did I do something to piss you off?" It would have been easy to back down, say I was just tired or stressed about work. Instead, I chose honesty. I didn't like how you kept cutting me off and contradicting me in front of everyone. "What? I don't do that," she said defensively. "You did at least 5 times tonight. I counted." She laughed. That fake laugh she does when she's uncomfortable. "You're being ridiculous. That's just how conversations go in groups." "No," I said firmly. "That's how you decided our conversations should go. You speak, I listen. You interrupt, I yield. Not anymore." The rest of the drive passed in silence. When we got home, instead of apologizing to smooth things over like I always did, I just went upstairs to shower. Later, I found her sitting on our bed, scrolling through her phone, but obviously waiting for me. "Are you mad at me?" she asked, her voice unusually small. "I'm not mad. I'm just reassessing some things." "What does that mean?" There was a note of panic in her voice I'd never heard before. "It means I've been thinking about balance in our relationship and how we treat each other." I sat down on the edge of the bed, but not close enough for our shoulders to touch. I asked her, "When was the last time you asked me what I wanted and actually listened to the answer?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. The silence stretched between us as she searched for an example and came up empty. "That's what I thought," I said quietly. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight. I need some space." As I gathered my pillow and started toward the door, she called after me, "Jake, is everything okay with us?" I paused in the doorway. "That depends on what happens next," I said, and closed the door behind me. That night in the guest bed, my mind was racing. Part of me felt guilty for disrupting the status quo, but a stronger part recognized that this discomfort was necessary, like the pain of a workout that makes you stronger. The morning after I slept in the guest room, Ruby was different. When I came downstairs, she was in the kitchen making breakfast for both of us, something she hadn't done in years, maybe ever. "Morning," she said with a nervous smile. "I made your favorite." She slid a plate in front of me and coffee, extra strong, how you like it. I thanked her politely but maintained my emotional distance. I'd seen this pattern before, a temporary change to smooth things over, only to revert back once the crisis passed. "I have plans today," I announced between bites. "Meeting up with my old lifting buddies from college, hitting the gym, then probably hanging out after." She froze with her coffee mug halfway to her mouth. "Today? But we're supposed to look at wedding venues with my parents. They're driving in from Rochester. We've had this planned for weeks." Actually, she had planned it and only mentioned it to me in passing a few days ago. But I stayed calm. "You never confirmed that with me, and I made these plans last week." That was a lie. I had texted my old gym buddies Phil and Dave at 6 o'clock that morning, but she didn't need to know that. "Can't you reschedule?" she asked with that tone that always made me cave before. "You know how important this is. My parents are coming all this way." "No," I said simply. "I've been putting these guys off for too long. Your parents are welcome to come another time when we've both agreed on the date." The look of confusion on her face was priceless. In 4 years, I had never refused to go along with her family obligations. I'd sat through countless meals with her parents, making small talk and being the perfect future son-in-law, while she and her mom talked wedding details that I had no say in. "Is this because of last night?" she asked, her voice hardening. "Are you trying to punish me?" I put down my fork and looked directly at her. Not everything's about you, Ruby. I'm just choosing to spend time with friends I neglected, people who matter to me. I finished breakfast, thanked her for cooking, and went upstairs to get ready. As I was about to leave, she called from the living room. Will you be home for dinner at least? I can make that pasta you like. Not sure. I replied, grabbing my gym bag. Don't wait up. The day with my college buddies was exactly what I needed. Phil, Dave, and I used to live together the 5 times a week back in school. I'd been in the best shape of my life then, but over the years with Ruby, I gradually stopped going as much, always too busy with something she wanted to do. After a brutal but satisfying workout that left me sore in all the right places, we hit a sports bar to watch the game. 3 hours of just being with the guys again, talking, laughing, no one interrupting or dismissing my opinions. When Phil asked how things were going with the fiancé, I surprised myself by opening up. I didn't share everything, but enough for them to understand I was reevaluating. Finally, Dave said, clapping me on the shoulder, "We've been worried about you, bro. The Jake I knew in college never would let a chick control his life like that. Remember when Allison tried to make you skip that game for her sister's birthday?" Phil added, "You told her flat out, some things aren't negotiable." I had forgotten about that. How had I changed so much without even noticing? What happened to that guy? Dave asked. I don't know, I admitted, but I'm finding him again. I got home after 10 o'clock at night to find Ruby waiting up. The house was spotless, and she clearly made an effort with her appearance. Wearing the dress I had complimented once, and her hair the way I liked it. "How was your day?" she asked, seeming genuinely interested. "Good," I replied, suddenly feeling the weight of everything. "Really good. Forgot how much I miss those guys." "Come sit," she said, patting the spot next to her on the couch. "Tell me about it. I want to hear." For a moment, I was tempted. This was what I'd wanted. Her actual attention and interest. But I recognized it for what it was, a response to me pulling away, not a genuine change. "Maybe tomorrow," I said. "I'm beat. Going to turn in." "Our bed?" she asked hopefully. I shook my head. "Not yet. I still need space to think." Her face fell, but she nodded. As I headed upstairs, she called out, "How long is this going to go on, Jake? This, whatever you're doing." I paused but didn't turn around. "As long as it takes." "For what?" "For both of us to figure out if what we have is worth saving." That night, my phone lit up with texts from Phil and Dave. They wanted to make our workouts a regular thing. 3 days a week. I agreed immediately. Whether my relationship survived or not, I needed to reclaim the parts of myself I'd surrendered. The next 2 weeks brought major changes, not just to my relationship, but to me. I rejoined my old gym, reclaiming 3 evenings a week for myself. The physical exertion cleared my head, and the progress I saw in the mirror was immediate. At 29, I still had the muscle memory from my college days, and with each workout I could feel myself getting stronger, not just physically, but mentally. At work, I finally accepted the team lead position my boss had been pushing me toward for months. I'd been avoiding it because Ruby didn't like the idea of me working longer hours. The project would mean staying late some nights, but also a potential bump to $115,000 if I delivered. When I told Ruby about it over dinner, she frowned. "So you'll be working late now? For how long?" "Probably 3 months, maybe more. It's a big opportunity. And you didn't think to discuss this with me first?" There was an edge to her voice I recognized, the beginning of a guilt trip that had always worked before. "No," I replied calmly, continuing to eat. "It's my career. I made the decision that's right for me." Her fork clattered against her plate. "That's not how relationships work, Jake. We're supposed to make decisions together, especially with the wedding coming up." I looked up at her, feeling strangely calm despite her obvious anger. "Is that so? Like, when you decided to switch departments last year and took that management position with longer hours? Or when you committed us to that $35,000 wedding venue without even showing me the place first? Did you consult me then, or did you just decide?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again, recognizing the truth in my words. "This isn't about the job," I continued. "This is about the fact that I'm no longer asking permission to live my life. That's what's bothering you." "That's not fair," she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "It's perfectly fair. For years, I've supported every decision you've made, rearranged my life to accommodate your needs, and never complained. Now that I'm doing the same, it's suddenly a problem." She pushed her plate away, appetite apparently gone. "You've changed," she said quietly. "I don't even recognize you anymore." "You're right," I agreed. "I have changed. I remembered who I was before I started shrinking myself to avoid upsetting you. The question is whether you can accept this version of me, or if you only wanted the doormat." The word hung between us. Doormat. A harsh description, but not inaccurate. I had been one, and worse, I had allowed it to happen. She left the table without another word, and I heard our bedroom door slam moments later. I finished my dinner alone, cleaned up, and settled in the living room with a book on leadership I'd been wanting to read for months. An hour later, I heard her come downstairs. She stood in the doorway, watching me for a moment before speaking. "I don't think you're being fair," she said. "You're acting like I've been some kind of monster, but that's not true. We were happy, at least I thought we were." I marked my page and set the book aside. Were we? Or was I just making sure you were happy at the expense of my own needs? If you were unhappy, why didn't you say something? It was a fair question, and one I'd asked myself repeatedly, because I didn't realize how unbalanced things had become. I thought self-sacrifice was what love looked like. I was wrong. She moved into the room and sat across from me, her expression troubled. "So where does this leave us?" "The wedding's in a few months. Are you thinking about calling it off?" The directness of her question caught me off guard. Was I? The possibility had definitely crossed my mind, especially right after hearing her words about me being too soft, but now, "I'm not making any decisions right now," I answered. "I'm giving us both space to figure out if we can build something better than what we had. And if we can't, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married." She nodded slowly, absorbing this. For maybe the first time in our relationship, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not the manufactured emotion she sometimes used to get her way, but real fear of losing me. "I don't want to lose you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me how to fix this." "It's not that simple, Ruby," I replied. "This isn't something you can just fix with one conversation or by making my favorite dinner. This is about fundamental respect." Later that night, as I got ready for bed in the guest room, my phone pinged with a notification. It was an email confirmation for a reservation at my favorite steakhouse, the expensive one she always complained about. A text followed moments later. "No pressure. Just dinner tomorrow night. I'd like to get to know this new version of you." I stared at the message for a long time before responding with a simple, "I'll be there." As I drifted off to sleep, I wondered if this was the beginning of something new or just another manipulation tactic. Either way, I was done being the guy who always folded. Whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. The dinner reservation turned out to be more significant than I expected. She'd chosen a private booth in the corner, away from the main dining area. When I arrived, she was already there, wearing a green dress I'd once mentioned liking, and her hair down the way I preferred. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. There was a nervousness to her I hadn't seen since our early dating days. The conversation started awkwardly. We'd lived together for years, but suddenly felt like strangers. She asked about my new project at work, actually listening to my response without interrupting or turning the conversation back to herself. After our steaks arrived, she took a deep breath and set down her fork. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this past week," she said, "about us, about how I've been treating you." I nodded but stayed quiet, giving her space to continue. "I didn't realize how much I was taking you for granted, how I expected everything from you, without giving the same in return." "What exactly are you sorry for?" I asked. I wasn't going to let her off with vague apologies. She seemed surprised by the directness of my question. "For treating you like your needs don't matter, for making decisions without consulting you, for interrupting you and dismissing your opinions." She looked down at her plate. "For comparing you to Caleb." So she remembered that part of the conversation too. "Why did you do that?" I asked. "Compare me to your ex who treated you like garbage?" She flinched at my bluntness. "I don't know. That's not true. I do know, and it's messed up." She met my eyes. "Sometimes when things get too comfortable, too secure, I get scared." Caleb was exciting because he was unpredictable, dangerous even. I never knew where I stood with him, and part of me was addicted to that uncertainty. "So you're saying you miss being treated like garbage?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "No, God, no." She shook her head vehemently. "What I'm trying to say, badly, is that I took your stability and kindness for granted. I mistook your consideration for weakness because that's the toxic mindset I developed with Caleb. In his world, being considerate meant being weak. I considered her words, searching for sincerity or manipulation. The thing is, Ruby, hearing you say those things, that I was too soft, that you wished I had more backbone like Caleb, it made me realize something. I have been soft, not in the way you meant, but in how I've let you walk all over me." Her eyes widened. You heard that whole conversation." "Every word," I said evenly. "I came home early with a migraine that day, heard you on speakerphone with Ashley." The color drained from her face. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I think you didn't mean it." I cut her off. Maybe not the comparison to Caleb specifically, but the rest, that was the unfiltered truth, the kind that only comes out when people think no one's listening. Tears filled her eyes. It wasn't the whole truth. I was frustrated and venting to my friends like an idiot instead of talking to you. What was the real issue then? I challenged. If it wasn't my supposed softness? She wiped her eyes, taking a moment to compose herself. I think I've been testing you, she admitted quietly. Pushing to see how much you take, how far you bend. And when you never push back, I lost respect for you, which is completely messed up, I know. She shook her head. Caleb conditioned me to equate love with struggle. When things were easy with you, part of me didn't know how to process it. Her answer surprised me. Of all the explanations I considered, the psychological one hadn't been on my radar, but it made a twisted kind of sense. So what happens now? I asked. That's up to you, she said. I just want a chance to make things right, to be the kind of partner you deserve, to unlearn these toxic patterns. And if I'm not the soft man anymore, if I continue to put myself first sometimes, to have my own life and interests, if I push back when you cross lines, can you handle that version of me? I can more than handle it, she said, reaching for my hand across the table. I respect it. I need it. We both do, if we're going to have any chance. I looked at her outstretched hand, but didn't take it. We have a lot more to talk about, I said. A lot to work through. She nodded slowly, withdrawing her hand. I know. And if you decide the wedding needs to be postponed or even canceled, I'll understand. I just hope you'll give us a chance to rebuild. As we finished our meal, the air between us felt clearer, though nowhere near resolved. We weren't fixed, far from it, but at least the pretense was gone. 2 more weeks passed. Ruby and I existed in a kind of holding pattern. Civil, occasionally even warm with each other, but the engagement hung like a question mark between us. She'd stopped pushing for wedding planning, telling her mother we were reevaluating dates without giving details. I continued my transformation. My body was changing rapidly with a consistent gym schedule, broader shoulders, tighter waist, the V-shape returning to my torso. Phil commented that I looked more like my college self every week. At work, the team lead position was challenging but rewarding. I was making decisions confidently, delegating effectively, and earning respect from colleagues who had previously seen me as just another coder. I'd also reconnected with other friends I neglected, started playing basketball again on Saturdays, and even signed up for a coding competition I'd always wanted to try. My life was becoming full in ways it hadn't been in years. About 5 weeks after I'd first overheard that conversation, I was heading home early after closing a major deal at work. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Ashley's car parked out front. I wasn't in the mood for Ruby's judgmental friend, so I decided to quietly enter through the side door that led directly to my home office. As I approached, I heard laughter coming from the living room. Not wanting to interrupt, I paused in the hallway. You have to see him lately, Ruby scoffed, barely keeping it together between bursts of laughter. He's seriously out here pretending he's some alpha now, lifting weights, acting like he has a backbone. It's hilarious, like a chihuahua growling at a pit bull. Ashley threw in, smirking. Right? He struts around like he's suddenly this badass. It's cute, though, like watching a toddler throw punches at air. I mean, sure, the gyms do him some favors, but come on, we both know this phase won't last. What if it does? Ashley asked with raised brow. Then I'll just remind him who's really in charge. Let him play tough guy all he wants. He'll crawl right back once the ring's on. Guys like him don't walk away from someone like me. He's too used to being handled. I felt a cold fury wash over me like I'd never experienced before. The past month hadn't changed anything. She still saw me as a joke, someone she could manipulate and control. I quietly backed away, got in my car, and drove around for an hour to clear my head. When I returned, Ashley was gone. Ruby greeted me with a smile that now seemed so transparently fake. Hey, babe, how was your day? Interesting, I replied. Get a lot done while I was gone? Just wedding stuff with Ashley, she said with dismissive wave. Nothing important. Yeah, must have been pretty funny planning a wedding. What do you mean? Her smile faltered slightly. Nothing. I'm going to grab a shower. I went upstairs, pulled out my laptop, and started making calls. By the time I came back down 2 hours later, I had a plan. The next morning, I woke up early and went to the kitchen to start breakfast. But instead of making her usual avocado toast, I set a manila folder on her plate. When she came down, she looked at the folder with confusion. What's this? Open it, I said, sipping my coffee. Inside were cancellation confirmations for our venue, catering, photographer, every wedding contract we'd signed. All of them terminated with the deposits forfeited. Her face went pale. What did you do? I canceled our wedding, I said calmly. You what? Without even talking to me? Her voice rose to a shriek. You can't do that. I already did. Why? Because of some stupid fight? Because I interrupted you at dinner? This is insane, Jake. I sat down my coffee cup and said nothing, just staring at her with a calm I didn't know I possessed. Her expression shifted from confusion to panic as she realized I knew. Jake, whatever you think you heard, it wasn't what it sounded like. Ashley was just... I simply slid another folder across the table, cutting her off mid-sentence. She opened it with trembling hands, her face draining of color as she saw the cancellation confirmation for the venue, catering, photographer, everything. What is this? She whispered, though she knew exactly what she was looking at. I remained silent, my face expressionless. Jake, talk to me, please. Her voice cracked. You can't just. I pulled a second folder from the counter and placed it in front of her. What's this now? She asked, her hand shaking as she opened it. Apartment listings. I finally said, my voice flat. I've already paid first and last month's rent on the top one. It's yours if you want it. If not, that's your problem. Either way, I want you out of this house in 2 weeks. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You're kicking me out? You can't do that. We bought this house together. Check the deed. 2 words, no emotion. Jake, please, can we just talk about this? Tears were streaming down her face now. I know I messed up. It was stupid girl talk. It didn't mean anything. I just stared at her, saying nothing. She fell to her knees then, actually grabbing my legs. Please, Jake, I love you. I'll change. I'll do therapy. Whatever you want. Don't do this. I removed her hands and stepped back. Jake, say something, she pleaded, mascara running down her cheeks. Yell at me. Scream at me. Anything. Just don't shut me out like this. I walked to the door and grabbed my gym bag. I'm staying at Phil's for a few days, I said, my back to her. When I come back, I expect to see boxes packed. Jake, please. She was sobbing now, almost hysterical. You can't just throw away for years without even talking to me. I made a mistake. I'll do anything. I paused at the door, considered saying more, then decided against it. Some things didn't need to be said. I closed the door on her, wailing, and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in 4 years, I was completely free. 2 weeks later, I returned from a basketball game to find the house empty except for my furniture. She'd left her key on the counter with a 10-page handwritten letter that I skimmed and then threw in the trash. Some things don't deserve closure. That night, my phone blew up with texts and calls from her friends, even her parents. I blocked them all. The only message I responded was from Phil. Proud of you, man. 3 months later, I was settled into a routine that felt right. The promotion had come through with a raise to $125,000. I'd redone the house with furniture I actually liked. My body was nearly back to my college form. I heard through mutual friends that Ruby had moved back in with her parents and was going through a rough patch. Someone mentioned seeing her at a bar with Caleb, leaving in tears after he publicly humiliated her. None of it made me happy. I didn't want revenge or for her to suffer. I just wanted her out of my life. 6 months after the breakup, I was at a coffee shop working on my laptop when someone approached my table. Is this seat taken? I looked up to see a pretty woman with a warm smile holding a cappuccino. All yours, I replied, moving my bag. I'm Kate, she said, extending her hand. Jake, I replied, shaking it. As we started talking, I found myself opening up in a way I hadn't in a long time. She was a graphic designer, loved sci-fi movies, and had a sharp wit that made me laugh. When she asked if I'd like to grab dinner sometime, I felt no hesitation. I'd like that, I said, meaning it. Later that night, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed. A year ago, I had been planning a wedding with someone who didn't respect me. Now I was starting fresh, on my own terms. I hadn't heard from Ruby in months, and that was fine. The last update from mutual friends was that she and Kayla were back together, and he was treating her exactly how she deserved. Maybe that's what she wanted all along. All I know is that I finally became the man I should have been, not for her, but for myself. And yeah, that's my story. If anything new happens, I'll give you guys an update. After everything went down, life's been pretty damn good. That date with Kate turned into something real. We've been together for about 8 months now, taking things slow. She respects boundaries, communicates like an adult, and doesn't try to change me. Basic stuff that shouldn't feel revolutionary, but somehow does. The house is completely mine now. I bought out Ruby's portion and remodeled the kitchen like I always wanted. The project at work was so successful they made me department lead with a team of 5 under me, bumped to $135,000 with quarterly bonuses. For those asking if I ever heard from Ruby again, yeah, unfortunately. About 3 months ago, she showed up at my door at 2 o'clock in the morning, drunk and crying, begging for another chance. She said Caleb had cheated on her, shocking, I know, and that she'd finally learned her lesson. I called her.